Welcome to Way Back When, Big Blend Radio's History Podcast. So we're continuing our celebration of Aviation History Month this November. And honestly, as I said on the last episodes or segments, aviation history should be celebrated year round. It is something just amazing. You got to think back to the helicopter that Leonardo da Vinci drew, right? He was an inspiration. Birds are an inspiration. And then we did, thanks to the Wright brothers, get to actual flight. And then don't forget about the Montgolfiers who brought up the hot air balloons. And we always want to be in the sky, just like birds. That's what humans want to be. We want to be birds. And so then we learn how to fly, and then it becomes something for cargo, for passengers, and then also serving in military around the world. So very excited to have travel journalist Terri Guthrie back on the show. I encourage you to go to her website, travelwithterri.net, and that's TERRI.net. So welcome back. How are you, Terri?
Thank you, Lisa. Oh, we're fine. We just flew in from Istanbul, Turkey. So we are glad to be able to join you.
I'm glad to. You guys literally just landed, and it was Istanbul, not Constantinople. I just had to say that.
That is correct.
It's been updated. Can't help it. I know.
And it's Turkey now, not Turkey.
Yes, and they have a new spelling.
I noticed that in your post. I'm like, what's going on? So it's Turkey, Terri, and then everyone, Ron is here. Ron, her husband, is here. We're going to talk to him because he is a Top Gun. Okay. And, and as a pilot, he flew, as a Delta Airlines pilot, but also for the United States Air Force. So we got a lot to dig in with him. We're going to talk about museums, but Terri, first, tell us about this Turkey. It's not the same as what's happening on, Thanksgiving. No.
And I'm not sure why they changed the name, but instead of being spelled like the typical turkey bird, it's now Turkiye, and they are pronouncing it Turkiya. And that has been officially changed by the government. And so it's slowly changing. You see the spelling of both and you hear the pronunciation of both, but it is officially changed.
I think people are getting really connected to their cultural roots. I know Hawaii is going through that too, where even as travel writers come in there, it's like, you got to get things right, with all the different names and spellings. And I appreciate that. And that's part of being a travel journalist, right? Is actually understanding all these different changes and letting everyone know so that when we travel, that we are respectful to the places that we go to and the people, importantly.
Absolutely.
So, Terri, you met Ron in Mississippi, right? You guys went to the University of Southern Mississippi together, and you just looked at Ron and said, "He's going to be a pilot. I'm marrying him." What happened there? I want to hear. I want the scandal. You knew he was going to be a Top Gun, huh?
Oh no, I really did not. I knew that. This is funny. I knew that he was in Air Force ROTC because my friend that set us up on a blind date told me that he was really cute, but he had short hair because he was in ROTC. And she said, but he's still real cute, even though he doesn't have long hair, because of course, back in the 70s, all the guys wore their hair really long. So anyway, when we finally had our blind date, I saw him and loved him just the way he was, and saw that he had great dreams of being a military pilot, particularly a fighter pilot. And all that came to be. And he went on to, after he graduated, went on to Columbus Air Force Base in northern Mississippi, and was awarded the F-15 Eagle, the jet of his dreams.
Wow, this is amazing. So Ron, number one, thank you for your service. And I just always fighter pilots, I'm like, you guys are crazy, but we need you, and thank you. But you're crazy, right? Does anybody ever thank you and say crazy at the same time? But bravery would be the word. Bravery,
right?
Courage.
Terry's mother used to say, "Ronnie does dangerous things safely."
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, what was it that wanted you, like you wanted to become obviously wanted to serve, being in the ROTC, wanted to serve, in the military. What was it about becoming a fighter pilot? Because there is fear in that. If you don't have any little bit of fear, I don't know. I think we need fear in life. I think it's a good thing. Positive. Like, I know that sounds weird, but fear keeps you safe. But what was it for you that
I've wanted to be
that?
a fighter pilot since I was a little kid. My older brother and I, we just somehow bonded with aviation. Always loved aviation. He went into the Army, was an Army helicopter pilot, flew in the Gulf and 3 or 4
Wow.
tours over there in the wars. Was a Sun Country airline pilot. So I went into the Air Force and got the F-15 fighter, but we both just always played with airplanes, always wanted to fly. One of the things they look for to make you a fighter pilot is something called NAFD, or no apparent fear of death, which
Oh, we're
makes
back
you
to fear.
sound,
Ooh, yeah.
well, yeah, and it makes you sound brave, but actually they're looking for somebody who is so stupid that they don't have fear.
Yep.
And not not having fear is a good thing. Not that you're being brave and battling fear down. You just somehow what you're doing is so enthralling that it doesn't really strike you, that it's dangerous. Although, I was in 4 squadrons and we had four people killed in a squadron. So
Oh,
um, that whole part
yeah.
was, it's just even peacetime. We lose a lot of airplanes. Peacetime, flying fighters, we have a saying, train like you're going to fight because you'll fight like you trained. So you have to train to the edge because that's the way you got to fight.
Mm.
And, when you're going 1,000 feet a second and 100 feet off the ground, it doesn't take long to hit it.
The fear part, that's what I was talking about. Fear is good because it makes you be safe. To me, it pushes you into a zone. It's like the before. I used to perform, as a singer, and I would be like a baby beforehand. And then as soon as I started singing, like, I don't care what happens, I'm in. It's so focused and so in that zone. You cannot compare singing and fighter jets and stuff, right? And being a pilot, like, not at all. But it's about a zone, I think, right? And so you can't be thinking about anything else other than what you're doing and beyond, right? That
I'd
focus
rather
has to be
be
intense.
flying across the desert at 100 feet at 1,000 feet a second with my hair on fire than standing on a stage with a microphone. That would scare me.
Okay. All right. So let's trade. All right. Well, no, but
But the
it's interesting. Everyone's got a different fear. So this is okay. Yeah. Because believe this or not, like, I couldn't talk to the audience. I could sing, but not talk to the audience. You guys would think that's weird, but that's the truth. I had to get over that. You want to be somewhere, you have to push yourself through. Going into pilot training, what is that like? Because I know you were in the United States Air Force. What was training like?
the training is the undergraduate pilot training is about a year long, and it's pretty intense. I mean, you're drinking out of a fire hose, so it's not super hard, but it's a lot of it coming fast, and you've got to get yourself up to speed in 1 year, and then they separate out fighter pilots and then other than fighter pilots, and then the fighter pilots go on to um, something called fighter lead-in, which you've learned to fly the airplane real well, but you haven't really thought of the airplane as a weapon in fighting people. So
Mm.
then fighter lead-in teaches you, hey, let's fight with these airplanes. So this guy you've been cooperating with forever, learning to fly on his wing and stuff, now you're going to learn to beat him. And then from there you go to F-15 school where you learn to fight with the F-15. So it all comes pretty quick. I mean, um,
Hmm.
I think I was 22 years old when I soloed in the premier jet fighter in the world at that time. And I look at 22-year-old kids now, and it's like I wasn't scared then, but I'm scared now when I think about it.
Wow.
Because the airplane is, I mean, it's something. It's got a lot of power.
Well,
It's
it's a
and
different, it's different going from it being like a craft and playing like video games, right? Like, oh, we get to shoot, we get to do all this, and then it's like a real deal. Like when it is real, like this is it's a weapon, you know?
It,
That was something I've learned over so many military history podcasts we've done, especially with a gentleman, Mike McCarty, an author, amazing author. And he's like, it's a weapon. This is armor. It is not a vehicle. Like now in the other podcast on aviation history, I called it an air vehicle, planes, helicopters, and all of that. But it seems to me that like the F-15 is a weapon that you're steering.
yes, it is. And there's, in fighters, there's kind of two types of fighters. There's fighters who fly to a target and drop bombs on all their stuff, and they're called air to ground. And then there's air to air fighters. And then the F-15 was built. That's all we did was air to air. I never dropped a bomb in my whole life or attacked anything. I was strictly there to hunt other aircraft and engage other aircraft in combat and shoot other aircraft down. So we were strictly air to air fighters.
Wow.
And you literally just strapped that airplane on and became part of that airplane. What you can't see in Top Gun and other movies is in the aircraft, it's loud, the airplane is shaking, it's violent, the forces are unbelievable. And they show people black out in Top Gun, but F-15, we could pull 9.9 Gs, just call it 10 Gs. So your body weighs 10 times as much. So I weigh 200 pounds. Under 10 Gs, I weigh 2,000 pounds.
I'm never getting in one of those. I don't need that. Thank you. Hell no.
It is violent. It is exhausting. You have to do these incredible, exhausting maneuvers to get the blood to get out of your legs and back up to your head where you don't black out. And so it's just violent and loud and exhausting.
Wow.
And you just can't get that out of a movie.
No.
When I was an instructor pilot in the F-15, they would send people out, congressmen or whoever, to get a ride in the F-15. And I mean, right off the ground, I would just light the burners and suck into a great big climb. And half of them would black out right there because they just had no clue what they were getting into.
I would have passed out too. Obviously, it is so competitive, as you can imagine, Lisa, but I think it's just, they just are adrenaline junkies. I think they just thrive on that. And I just remember so well when we were living in Phoenix, Arizona, and Ron, he wore his flight suit every day, just like what you would see in Top Gun. That's what he wore, which was very comfortable, and he loved his flight suit. And I remember one morning he was leaving to go to work, and he was like, I cannot believe I get paid to do this, because it was just so exciting. And he was so passionate about it, as, were all the other fighter pilots. They just thrived on it. And it was just such a great opportunity for him, and one that's, such a rare opportunity. And he's got a lot of stories to tell, that's for sure.
Well, I wanted to say, the F-15, I know that those things are not quiet. I know that when we were in Wisconsin, up in Madison, that there was like they were flying F-14s, 15s, 35s. I don't know which one, but it was loud. It would actually shake the house. They were going so low down and doing training. And I was like, holy cow, what about being in one? So now hearing, Ron, what you were experiencing through this, it's so interesting because we talk about Top Gun. We all think about the movie immediately. And, it's so funny. We lived outside of Oceanside, California, which has got Camp Pendleton there. And they have the Top Gun house, which was, Kelly McGillis is in that. That was her home in the movie. And you can go get pie on the beach from the house there now. It's a little different, but that's cool, right? Well, San Diego County is massive on military, It's massive. You guys, you had to be there, right? You've been there, right, Terri? You've been to San Diego?
Oh, many times, yes. In fact, Ron's best friend that was an F-15 pilot, they live there now. So we go to San Diego a good bit.
Okay, so
And San
F-15.
Diego
Go ahead.
was the home of Top Gun school, San Diego, Miramar. When
Air Force Base, yeah.
When Top Gun first came out, I was flying F-15s out at Luke, and we would go over to Miramar, and we would deploy to Miramar to fight the Navy, even though the ranges we fought in were closer to Luke than they were to Miramar. But the bar at Miramar after Top Gun came out was just crazy, just
wow,
unbelievable. It was like, wow. And Terri even actually came over.
She's the journalist.
Came over on one of the deployments with me.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
When we finally meet you in person, we'll be all sitting down. We'll let's have a little cocktail, and we'll talk to Ron and get everything. No, I'm just kidding. But Ron, and you were in the F-15, right? So I know a teeny bit about F-14s from Mike Barty with his book Tomcat Fury. So they had names. So he was talking about how the F-14. He interviewed all these pilots who flew it, and this was really more when they were, these planes, this is what is, I'm so glad you're on the show, because what is fascinating to me is how these jets, planes, weapons, right, end up getting traded. Like they end up either in a boneyard or get traded, and then later it's like the enemy's pointing our own weapons at us, So the F-14 went all over. I know that was in the Iran and Iraq war and in Afghanistan and in the global war on terror. That's what they were used. So did the F-15, number one, did it have a name? Because the Tomcat was for the F-14. Did the F-15 have a name? And then was that before or after? Because does it just go like every time there's a new plane, it's F-15, 16, 17? You can see how naive I am, right? It's okay.
Right. Yeah, they do count up in fighters. So, and they've had some weird iterations, the F-102, and then we went to the F-4 and F-5 and F-16. I'm not sure how exactly they get named on each one. Each one does get a nickname. So the F-15 was the Eagle.
I like that.
And there's still
F-15 Eagle.
The F-15 is still, very operational. Our good friend, who was a F-15 pilot with Ron, his son is now a F-15 pilot and flying some of the same jets his dad did. So
no way.
Well, even different. The Air Force is buying brand new F-15s. So Terri and I were at a reunion at Eglin Air Force Base down in Destin, Florida, a year and a half ago, and my old squadron is converted over to the F-35, but they had two F-15s who came in and beat up the pattern and put on a little show for us. And there were several hundred of us old fighter pilots there, and they taxied up, and we're looking at them going, what's going on? And so we're talking with one of the pilots, and he said, those are brand new F-15s. They just flew up, got them, and flew them down here to beat up the pattern for you guys. But they're brand new. So the Air Force is still buying F-15s, brand new. The F-15 first flight was 50 years ago.
Wow.
And they're still buying.
Brand new. Anything changed? Any changes?
Brand spanking. Most of the changes are the flight controls, computers, the screens, the interfaces with other aircraft. The airframe is pretty much the same. But to put that in perspective, 74 was the first F-15s, and they're still buying them today, 50 years later.
Wow.
If you backed up the F-15 50 years, that would be 1924. We were flying airplanes with two wings made out of fabric back then.
Oh,
so cow. That would have been just after World War I with the old, Spads and Newports and all the old little bitty, airplanes with fabric wings and wood wings. So that's a phenomenally long time. It's the longest time I can think of for any operational fighter.
Wow. So I want to go to Terri, and I know we're going to talk museums and presidents and all of that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Terri, what was it like being a wife of a fighter jet pilot? I mean, did you worry?
Well, I did, but I kind of got used to it. And, so, it was just our life. And yeah, there's always worry in the back of your head. And, you realize it's a very high risk job, but he loved it. And it was the most wonderful 7 years of our lives. I mean, it was just so fantastic. And a fighter, squadron is so tight knit, and that adds so much to it. You really make lifelong friends, and there is, it's a lot of camaraderie there. And that was something that's very special that we have always treasured. But the only funny thing, talking about, how loud they are and all the things that can happen, or, they can do a lot to get them in trouble too. That's when I was in radio news there in Florida. And several times things would happen, and I would hear, somebody did something crazy in the F-15, flying too low down by the beach. Or one time somebody flew down too low, went supersonic over Fort Walton Beach and blew out a lot of the windows, the showcase windows of the stores downtown. And I remember anytime I heard something like that, I'm like, oh Lord, please don't let it be Ron.
Oh my gosh. We used to live in Fort Walton.
Oh, really?
Yeah, outside of Eglin. Yeah. Uh-huh. All of that area. And Florida is has a lot of flight history just in general, in regards to even back in the World Wars as being a place for pilots to train, I believe. Now we have space, right? So,
right. Yeah. Well, they're positioned well. That's for sure.
Ron, would you go to space?
I don't have any particular desire to go to space. That whole right stuff thing and being an astronaut, no, I don't really think that appeals to me.
What about you, Terri, as a travel writer? Would you go?
I probably would.
So the roles would be, I love this, because the roles would be reversed. Ron, you're going to have to wait while she goes up.
Yeah. Yes.
And he's going to sit there and go, Terri wants a margarita up there.
That's right. I have to tell you, Lisa, being married to a fighter pilot and a race car driver and a motorcycle racer, and I've had to learn to be pretty adventurous myself just to hang with him.
Oh my God! So you like speed, basically, not the drug, but that's
I don't really like to be in control. I'm good at being a passenger.
But I mean, it's like, go for it. I do things that scare me all the time, because it's like, even if I pee in my pants, I did it. I don't care. Yeah. And I can't remember when the last time maybe. There's certain roads and mountain passes I'm not good at, but I will do it. And I've done some of the most deadliest mountain passes in this country. In fact, all of them. Actually, now that I think of it, I think I'm missing something in Alaska. But I do it, even though nobody wants to hear my language at that time when I do it. Ron, how's your language when you're in a fighter jet? How's the language?
It's pretty intense, and you're really focused when you're doing that. But you don't, there's so much going on around you in the middle of a fight that you don't really have time to think about it. You were talking about
wow. That intense,
you were talking about fear earlier, and we're kind of selected because we don't have a fear of death, but what fighter pilots have is an extreme fear of failure or embarrassment.
Holy cow, that's it.
That's it. I mean, that's the whole right thing. I'd rather die than fail. I'd rather die than embarrass myself. And so that's what drove you, really.
This is like you took the game to like the ultimate level, and it's not a game because it's life and death, but this is like, holy cow. I'm watching myself, see, in my language. I'm just saying, what you do is it's for all of us on the other side. And I think also on the civilian side, I want to touch on that. I always bring this up in conversations on the military, is watch TV. Like Terri, you're a wife and a mom,
Mm-hmm.
and you're on that other side. You're connected. You understand Ron. Ron's doing his thing. But I think that it's still hard to connect to what the military goes through to do. Even, as much as Ron loves this, it's still
Mm-hmm.
like putting your life on the line. I really have to say that. And we'll see news going, so many troops are killed and this and that. And people go, oh my God, that's terrible. So many troops are killed. Do they really feel it? Like, I think that there's a disconnect in some ways. And I don't know how to fix that, but maybe Veterans Day and things like that do help. It brings people to it. And I believe people care, but it's so not tangible to truly have an understanding. Maybe we shouldn't. I don't know. But,
Right.
life and
It's
death is really
transitional.
real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it weird?
I mean,
Yeah.
we had a midair in my squadron, and Dave McCarthy, Big Mac, and Colonel Hines had a midair, and we got called out in a helicopter, and we're going out to the range to try to find out what's going on, and um, they won't answer on the radio. We get out there and we find a couple of smoking holes, and I find some airplane wreckage, and I might find my friend Big Mac, and I won't go through all the details, but his body is in the crash, and we're trying to get him secured. The airplane's torn up, and it's scattered all around, and standing there in the middle of the crash with, smoke and stuff burning, trying to get Big Mac secured. And you go, huh, wow, this, really is dangerous. I mean, we come within a tenth of a second of each other, and this was a tenth of a second the wrong way. And here it is scattered all over the desert.
Wow.
And I'm packing my friend up, So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely dangerous.
It's not just numbers on a TV screen.
No, and when I was standing there in the wreckage and I was looking at the parts of the airplane strewn all over, I'm like, I love this airplane more than just about anything, but this is the other side of it right here, and it got real right there.
And get very unforgiving sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the harsh realities, well, let's move to museums. I know, segue. Because I want people to just kind of sit back and take that in, because it's real. Museums do have a way to bring us back too. I do appreciate how museums have become so much more interactive, especially for kids. I don't know about you all, but when I was in school, I hated history, but I'm actually one of the biggest fans of history. And eventually, and the only reason I really became really good at it was I read historical novels starting at a very, very young age, read things like War and Peace when I was 8, 9 years old. Stupid. Had no clue what I was reading.
Wow.
No, don't even ask me about it. And then I had to read it again and, but really into it, but school killed it for me. And then when we went on the road in South Africa and I went to battle sites and really saw what happened, I went, holy cow, this is real.
Mm-hmm.
This is real stuff. And I came back, I was a Rhodes Scholar, literally not like the Rhodes Scholar, like Chris Christopherson, right? But on the road, learned and homeschooled while we were traveling for a year and a half, it was 2 years and 2.5 years. We went to every park, every place in South Africa you can imagine. And, museums, everything, and had to be checked in. Like, are you learning? Yes, I am. And when I graduated high school, I majored in that. Like, that was my thing.
Oh,
it was amazing
good.
from travel, right? So that's why I'm going to it. And it was going to battle sites and seeing unmarked graves that really got me to understand. And that's when I talk about numbers and then Ron, your friend, I'm sorry, that's not a number. Your friend is not, Big Mac is not a number. And so that's why we do these shows, is we want to give reverence and respect to those who do what they do now and the past. And it's important. And I think museums nowadays, like when I was a kid going around some of those museums, I was like, it's dusty old, like, But now I'm really seeing museums step up. Have you seen that, Terri? That they're really getting kids and doing storytelling in a better way than, because we have digital technology. It's different, right? Than what we've had in the last 20 years. I think the last 5 years has been good.
Actually in Tulsa, Oklahoma, they have a great aviation museum there that we used to take our little grandsons to all the time. And they enjoyed it so much that Baker wanted to have his birthday party there. And he did. He had his 5th birthday party at the Tulsa Aviation Museum. And so it was so interactive, you know, when you can actually get inside of cockpits and, you know, pretend you're flying.
You're not allowed to say cockpit anymore.
Oh,
it's illegal. It's an illegal word now. Okay. Yeah, it's the flight deck, I believe, is the word. I don't know. I don't make the rules. You can say whatever you want on our podcast.
I've heard that. Okay.
I don't care, but apparently you're not allowed to.
Don't get me in trouble
Ron?
now. Okay.
Am I right about this? Is that true? Like we're not allowed that cockpit? That's a naughty word, apparently.
No, I don't know that, but on airliners they call it the flight deck.
Yeah.
But in fighters, it's because you're the only one there. They call it a cockpit. And the interactive, my favorite museum, or one of my favorite museums, is the Palm Springs Air Museum, because they have a lot of fabulous history in these warbirds, and but they have what they call, you'll see a sign that says "touch the aircraft," and then you're thinking no touch, you know, don't touch the aircraft.
Yeah.
And the signs on the airplane say touch the aircraft.
Yeah.
Interact with the aircraft.
They encourage it.
They encourage you. They've got a B-17 that you crawl in the nose and go all the way through it and crawl out the tail of it. And
cool.
You can get up and sit in these airplanes and just, you know, you go up and you feel the wings. They want you to touch and interact. And it's not this thing that's just set up on a pedestal to be viewed. It's something to be interacted with and just kind of feel the experience of an airplane. So the museum's touch the aircraft policy is the only one I've ever seen of a museum that encouraged you to interact like that. And it was really nice. And they even have warbirds that you can go and take a ride in these warbirds and experience flying in them. So they really want you to experience aviation at this museum and not just
that whole
look at
region is amazing. I mean, we talked I think before the show, is like we did Edwards Air Force Base, go down and you've got like Palm Springs area. You've got so much military history. The tank dude is out there. Now he just jumped out of my head. The tank guy is there just down the street from Palm Springs. He has a museum. Oh my gosh. I can't believe I can't remember the tank man's name, but he's got parts even in Mojave National Preserve that are dedicated to him. He's the tank man. Who's the tank man? Oh my gosh. I'll get back to you I'll Google this as we talk.
Well, General Patton did a lot.
That's the tank man. That's the tank man.
Right.
Okay.
He did training for World War II for the Africa invasion. He did training, and he did some of it over on the other side of the river in Arizona also.
Yes.
But they set up their tank training areas out there. I've been to some of those areas on my dirt bike.
Yeah, and part of that history even brings in camels, right? So there's Holly Roger. And that is out in their Quartzsite, Arizona, right? It's in the Colorado River area near Blythe, and so
that's
Holly
where I've been
Roger
on my bike.
It's actually Hajaji, I think, or something. I'm going to be wrong, so anyway, I'm trying. But our country brought camels in because we thought they would, you know, the ships of the desert could be part of military, and that didn't work. And I've actually seen. Nancy and I were driving back from Yuma, Arizona is another great military place, right? Not so far from San Diego.
Yes,
we were driving home to San Diego, through Glamis, which is this beautiful sand dunes, and you see the desert change and everything. And there was a dude with a turban on, like walking his camel, and we're looking at each other like we didn't even have wine. What the heck? What's going on? But then we learned the history, and the history of camels in our military also connects all the way in through Texas. And so that is part of actually some of the immigration that came into our country came through the military with these camels. And it was all the same time as Patton and then, when you look at what has happened in regions, like in Louisiana, Alexandria, Louisiana has an international airport, central Louisiana, and they have all of these, World War II, like jets, I think they are, bombers, and they have faces. One looks like a shark, one looks like they've painted these faces on them. So when you go to the airport, you're seeing military history right there. But up the road is Kisatchie National Forest, where they did the Louisiana maneuvers with tanks. So I'm wondering about tanks and airplanes or jets and, flight and tanks being connected in different regions. It's kind of interesting. Is that part of training, is understanding what's going on below you in regards to that? Or no? Okay.
Not for air-to-air fighter pilots. We could really kind of care less what was going on down there. Our job was just to kill other airplanes. But if you were an air-to-ground pilot, then yes, you might even be in support of those tanks, and you're going to be delivering ordnance out in front of them, or that's all that whole bomb dropper world. And the air-to-air guys considered ourselves the purest. We were the apex predator out there.
The wolves.
And so, yes, we didn't really involve ourselves with. We just said there's two types of airplanes. There was F-15s and there was targets.
Oh,
and so
I shouldn't say wolves. You were eagles. Well, it's interesting about this history, like Palm Springs. Like, it's so much. I feel like so much goes down also in military communities that also had like star-studded stuff going on. There was like in history, that's a whole other tangent. I shouldn't even start, but I know, presidentially, you've been to the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, and, that also ties into flight history. And, so I know there's some presidents that are pilots, right? That you wanted to touch on, that we may not know about.
Yes, I do. The Ronald Reagan Library you don't really think of a presidential library for aviation, but they have the original Boeing 707 four-engine jetliner Air Force One that they somehow managed to get up on the side of a mountain in California and put it inside the museum. And you can go out and walk through Air Force One. So that's just kind of a cool experience that I'm on Air Force One where all this stuff happened with these presidents. And there were 3 U.S. presidents who were pilots, and all 3 of them were from Texas. Just saying, go Texas. But it was Dwight Eisenhower, and then both of the Bushes. George Sr. was a Navy pilot in World War II, and then George Bush was a Air Force fighter pilot. Also,
I did not know that.
Yeah, he flew F-102 jet fighters.
I think it's always good that I don't know if I'm not allowed to be personal, but I am going to. I think it's good when a president or vice president has had some military service. Just saying.
I do too.
I agree.
It's really important to understand because there's so much complexity to war. Mm-hmm. We had a great honor of interviewing a military hero. Oh my gosh, he wrote a book about it, and he was in the Cuban Missile Crisis. And he was there when Kennedy got the call. Okay. And they made the call. Everything is to stop. So the Russians are coming through Cuba, right? And they were literally dying in these submarines, literally. Get over to where his boats, or submarine, excuse me. They did a whole production on this on BBC, and they get it. They're together, and there's a peace treaty, and they come out on board to shake each other's hand, and they go to do it. And the Russians, no one can understand each other, but what the Americans do, and our friend goes, "What do you need?" And he's like, "Cigarettes, bread, and coffee." And he's like, "We'll get you that, They go to do it, and here comes a airplane above to take a historic photo. And those days during the Cuban Missile, I mean, we don't have what we have now. He threw down, they like I'm going to say like firecrackers or whatever, but it's a way to light up the sky so they could take a photo of this historic
Flares.
thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank
Flares.
you. Good word. Yeah. You got the words. I don't, they take the photo and the Russian freaks out. And right there and then, everything could have started another war. He thought he was being trapped because of the flares. And he had to go, no, it's fine. Because the Russians had gone through hell. I mean, they were sweating like you wouldn't believe inside those submarines. They had they were dying, literally. And that point, when those flares happened, he just reacted and thought, oh hell, I'm going to bomb you now. Like, I'm going to get you. And they had to calm down. They didn't understand each other, and everything worked out. But that is what I'm talking about. Complexities. These fine lines can be broken very quickly and in war. And
really, and it can't happen. Just somebody instinctively reacts, and we see that in peacetime a lot, where Russians and U.S. fighters have, they kind of play cat and mouse sometimes. It's like, but nobody make a mistake or do anything stupid, because you can get a shooting war started. That's how KAL 007 got shot down, was somebody made a mistake. And, luckily that didn't start a shooting war. But yeah, there's a lot on the line. You got to be real careful.
So a lot of those who have served in the air, in the military, do become pilots in the airlines. And you did that, right? So have you met a lot of military being a pilot, getting
used
people
to
here and there? Did you see a lot of that?
Yeah, used to. You flew in the military. The military is kind of a pyramid, so as you go higher, less guys are going to stay. They don't have as many generals as they have lieutenants. So guys get out of the military, and if you're a military pilot, you're going to go to the airlines. They're going to hire you. That's who they would rather hire, because they've got millions and millions of dollars worth of training in a military pilot that a civilian just can't afford to get that kind of training. So the military pilots all get hired, and then whatever extra pilots they need, they hire civilian pilots. So that was kind of a standard thing. The military turns out a lot less pilots now. We have less pilots now than we used to have. So, and the commitments are longer, and so they don't turn out as many. So you see a lot more civilian pilots and airliners now. My son-in-law came up as a civilian pilot, learned to fly, flew smaller airplanes, flew a corporate jet, then got on with Frontier Airlines. So he came through civilian.
It's interesting how it happens, Going back to museums, so we did Palm Springs, Ronald Reagan. See, we're sticking to our track here as best we can.
Another good one is National World War II Museum in New Orleans.
New Orleans. See, this is important. I want to say why this is also important is because it's part of the historic Jefferson Highway. Terry, we covered this. And
yes.
So New Orleans, this is huge. And like Alexandria in Louisiana and the Louisiana maneuvers is all part of this history of this historic route. So, we'll talk more on that on another show, but I just wanted to give a plug for the Jefferson Highway. Check it out. It's America's first vacation route. But I'm tying into this. October, they did a convoy of military vehicles that ran, because the highway goes from Winnipeg, Canada, to New Orleans. That's the highway, and it started in 1915. The Military Vehicle Preservation Association did an entire convoy that went, and everyone, you can hear this show this week on BigBlendRadio.com. They went from Winnipeg all the way down for an entire month, all of October, making stops, and they went to this museum. This is pretty epic. Hospital wagons kind of things. I don't know if that's what they're called, but the hospital things, the medic vans, all kinds of military vehicles. That's insane. From World War II, Vietnam era, you name it, did this convoy. No airplanes that I know. So maybe we have to do that next, Ron. Just saying. And then we can go to this museum. But isn't that pretty epic to do? To drive this?
That's very cool. I didn't even know about that.
They had to do, it took 2 years to plan because of the roads and the weight of the vehicles on small roads, country roads, and going over bridges, detours, huge. And they went to veterans halls, VFWs, American Legion units, all the way down, and military museums. And this was the epic center was a World War II museum in New Orleans. So sorry, Ron, I didn't mean to take over, but I just thought that was epic. Pretty cool, even though it's not aviation.
No, that is cool. Everything like that honors, the folks who've come before us. I think that's a really good thing. And I like that World War II museum. I thought it was fabulous. It's only a small portion of it is in aviation. The two granddaddy of all aviation museums, the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., and then the National Museum of the Air Force, which is in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base at Dayton, Ohio. Those are both just the granddaddy. There's so much aviation there that you need to plan a week, and they're both free. So it's a fantastic experience, and it's free. I mean, you can go to Wright-Pat Air Force Base, free entry, free parking, and it'll take you days to see and experience everything that they have. So they're the granddaddy of all of the museums. Another thing for people who are interested in museums is to Google they changed their name. They're the Commemorative Air Force, the CAF. And they have 82 different museums. They have different interactive events, air shows. You can get rides in airplanes, and 82 different locations throughout the United States. So if you're interested in going to a museum, just Google Commemorative Air Force Base or Air Force, and there's a museum near you somewhere. And the other thing about museums not to forget is the airlines have great museums, and they're free. So Delta Airlines has one in Atlanta. American Airlines has the C.R. Smith Museum here in Dallas, but they're also a really cool museum experience tracking flight, which most of us have had more experience with an airliner than we have with a fighter. And so getting to see the evolution of flight attendant uniforms for when they had to be single and be a nurse to be a flight attendant, all the way through the evolution of flight attendants, which is where more people have experience with flight attendants than pilots or anything else. And it's kind of cool to see that the evolution of flight attendant uniforms was another great display to see how they changed.
It's the history of tourism too.
History of tourism.
Huge history of tourism, which goes to Terri. And what about Pan Am? Because we have a Chef Ivan Flowers, who's been on our show, and he tells some crazy stories about being the chef on board those flights. And there's all I can say is there's some crazy stories of things flying around. I'm just going to leave it at that. He can tell his own stories, but things went flying. I'm just saying.
And that happens occasionally. You still get the unexpected turbulence. And as a pilot, I mean, there are times when I just had the stuffings knocked out of me, and did anybody see that coming? I mean, there was no indication. It's called CAT, or clear air turbulence. And one passenger who described it after a flight where there was bad severe air turbulence said people were floating around the cabin like astronauts. So.
See, Terri's prepared. She knows.
Oh, yeah.
She's prepared. She's the one going to space. She's already getting it. Listen, Terri, the only thing is I don't want to ever have to wear diapers. See, that's the only thing. I don't want to do. See, that's the thing.
No, you have to wear a diaper to go in space?
I don't know. I think you might. I don't know.
Oh,
the whole potty room thing bugs me. I don't know.
I might have to revisit that decision.
I know that's what you expected to talk about on today's show. Thank you both so much. It has been fun. It's been enlightening and also realistic, to understand what it's like to be a fighter pilot. That's a fighter jet pilot is amazing. Thank you for your service and career, Ron, and also transporting people. Because as our one friend, Henry Bernanke, is a pilot, he says pilots are not allowed to have a bad day. You're delivering people. And that's that. You're not.
Yeah, you have to be on every time, but
no excuses.
I never called it work, though. That find a job you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life. Well, I never worked a day in my life.
Well, good for you. That is awesome. Terri, I think that's the same for you. It sounds like, because you're always happy.
Yes. And I feel the same way. Yes, we have been very blessed, and I'm glad we have each other and that we both are passionate about travel. So we're a pretty good little match.
Well, it's awesome. And we can't wait. We're going to be talking with you again soon. So everyone, again, you got to keep up with Terri. She goes around the world, literally. I don't know, maybe she gets those jump seats really easily. I don't know how that happens. Go to travelwithterri.net. It's Terri. I follow her on Instagram. Oh my gosh. Go look at Turkey. What's it? Turkey? How do you say it now? Turkey. I see. Oh, yes. Turkey. There it is.
Yes. And I have lots more I'm posting. I'm just getting started. That's an amazing place.
Cool. Thank you both so much. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Terri.
Well, thanks so much. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you for joining us here on Big Blend Radio's Way Back When History Podcast. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com.